Welcome to episode 232 of Missing Pieces. This is my weekly audio journal podcast where I talk about what I'm up to and what I'm into. What I'm not into right now is this terrible pimple that I have on my face. I'm hoping for your sake you're listening to this out in podcast land, and I pray that you don't come over just to see just how bad this is, because it's really bad. Usually I have pretty good skin, I would say, but every once in a while I get like this just awful pimple that comes like right here on my cheek, like kind of like right when where your mouth meets your cheek. Don't come over and look at it. And if I swear, if I see a spike in the views in this video, I'm coming for you podcast peeps from Apple Podcast Land and Spotify. But yeah, the show must go on, I suppose. So just turn your screen off, turn your monitor away, whatever you need to do to not see me right now. Just like, dude, last time this happened, also a terrible time, was right when we were going on our beach trip for the summer to Outer Banks and Ocean City. Like that day that I left, I just had like the worst pimple, and I'm like trying to strategically like not show that side of my face as to not gross people out. But you know, it's a part of life, it's reality, and it is what it is, right? Like I'm not gonna not make an episode. I'm not gonna make an episode just because of that. Although there wasn't an episode last week, so my claim of my weekly audio journal did not happen. And that's because, as you probably know, it was Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving break was on. In fact, the episode that I recorded last 2 Fridays ago, that was Clarkman's last day of school. For 10 days, he had it all counted up and was all excited about it, as I was too. Cody had 2 extra days that were kind of rough because it's like 2 12-hour days. One is an in-service day with a parent-teacher conference kicker at the end of it, and then the next day is just like an in-service day, the whole day of just parent-teacher conferences. So they used to do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday normal days, but then like everyone voted to just like do 2 really long days to have Wednesday off, which was still a lot because on Wednesday there was a lot of prep work and things that needed to be done. The family was coming over, but I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you all about the things that Clarkman and I did leading up to that, including a huge victory for us last weekend, or 2 weekends ago. I'm losing track of time. The weekend right after I recorded the last episode, which was 231, we ended up finishing a video game that we had started a while ago. Didn't stream any of it, but we ended up streaming the finale, which happened to be like 4 hours of us finishing a game called It Takes Two, which is a great time to discuss this because I think it's the free game of the month on PlayStation Plus right now, but it's also available on Game Pass. So if I can sell you on this game, this is a perfect one to play with a partner, whether it be your spouse, significant other, your kid, your ambidextrous monkey pet. I don't know, whatever you have, anyone you have to play with you. This game is very much a game where you work together, not in the sense like Overcooked is, where you know it's like you're struggling and you have to like really distinguish tasks between people. This is more of like, okay, player 1 steps on this platform, so player 2 can use this other platform that came out to get through, and it's a lot of like getting special powers and things. The story of it is actually really good too. It's about this couple that is kind of like fighting amongst themselves, and they have a daughter, and she's seeing all of this, and basically, like long story short, there's no way that I can sell you on the story, just the gameplay, but you get shrunken down into like these little wooden figurines, and then you're forced to go all throughout the house in quests to kind of work together and develop that bond that you once had as a couple, and to bring that back so you can be released and put back into like your normal bodies. And then the daughter is there as well. And it was just really cool. And like the gameplay of it was amazing. The graphics there was all these moments where I was just like amazed by what they're able to do in this game. And all the things you get to do is just wild, especially playing it with someone else, like your kid, for example. It really left a lasting impression on me, and I just loved finishing that game. So if you want to watch, I think it's like 3.5 to 4 hours of us like finishing the last few levels of the game. It was a pretty long one. You can go and watch that on Greg's Arcade if you want to tune into that and see all of the fun that we had with it, or if you want to get a taste of what the game's like. But it's called It Takes Two, and you can get it for free if you have PlayStation. Well, it's a free ride when you've already paid, as we sometimes say. If you have Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, you can play that one. So that was a big win. We also had a little bit of fun the one day that Cody was in doing the conferences. We went down to Target. Clark wanted to spend some of the money that he earned from his YouTube channel. If you didn't know, Clarkman has his own channel. It's called Clarkman1215. Someone already got Clarkman. So I took him down there and he went shopping around. He had a item in mind that he wanted, and then he found another one, but he was trying to decide whether he should spend the money on it or not. And because he's a saver at heart, which is, I guess, maybe one thing that I've done well as a parent. I've kind of instilled the philosophy of is the value in something? If you're going to spend your money on it, is there enough value there to justify it? Are you going to play with it enough to earn the money that it takes to get that? And I think learning that at a very young age is a good thing, and it's kind of turned Clarkman into like we'll just say a little bit of a cheapskate, because when it's my money, he's totally down for buying things. Although he does he knows if something's a ripoff or not. Like he can see a Lego set and be like, that should not be $100. That should be $50. So he has that down, but especially more so when he goes to spend his money, it's like, do I really want to spend $25 on an action figure? It sure has a lot of articulation. And I may have like kind of enticed him into it, or kind of, what's the word that I want to say? Motivated him a little bit to go ahead and just get it. Plus, he had some very generous super chats on his channel and things like Ray, if you're listening to this, which I know you are. Mark, you might be too. They've been very generous with Clarkman. So he had some money from his channel, and he spent it and he had a good time. He made a video all about it, which did really well on his channel. It's kind of one of those weird things. Like YouTube is so weird in that regard for me, where I can film myself having fun, and then that earns money that I can then use to have more fun. It's like the infinite fun glitch. And just like, I talk about this all the time, but I just feel so blessed to be able to do what I do for a living, including this podcast. Like, who the heck gets to sit down and just talk about their boring life and people actually care to listen? That's pretty cool, right? Especially if you've watched the video so far. I must hide myself from the shadows. The only light I have is the reflection of my computer screen, which I don't think is helping. Maybe if I move, I'm going to sit sideways like this the rest of the time. You'll never know. It's actually kind of artistic if I sit like this. But anyways, that was kind of like the days leading up to Thanksgiving break. One benefit of the nephews and the cousins and my sister and brother-in-law, the whole relationships of all of us together. The nice thing is they came a day early. They've been having a bad run this year. The camp that they have near us, that got flooded, as did Yemi and Pap's camp, got flooded over the summer when we were coming back from Outer Banks, I believe. But then Casey and Tiff also had a flood in their house too. Like while they were on vacation themselves, some type of water line or something broke, or something going into the fridge and flooded the whole first floor of their house. So they're in the process of getting that all fixed. So Christmas is kind of up in the air with them, because we always go out there, which is a fun experience. But they come here for Thanksgiving, and they came a day early. So they were here on Wednesday, and they actually stayed up until Friday, which was fun. You saw the Thanksgiving video. We did the early Christmas family gift exchange, and the reason for that is not a good one. And I guess I should share the news here, because it's kind of a private thing, but it's kind of where we're at in reality. You guys have been asking about Yemi and Pap, and Pap as of right now is good. But Yemi, she's been having a lot of medical stuff this year. She had the broken leg while we were gone on vacation. She broke her leg, fell and broke that. And then she got COVID again. At the same time, she got these blood clots in her torso or her body. And then when they were checking that out, they found that she had a mass near her liver. And she got the news this week that it's a form of cancer. So she has to go through chemo, which she just started this week, and radiation. So all of this is like happening at the same time. So it was like, fun times with family, but then like that kind of is looming over things. So the reason that we did the gift exchange early, you might be wondering like, why'd you guys do a Christmas gift exchange on Thanksgiving? And that's why you have to tune into Missing Pieces, so you can get like the full story. And that's that Yemi, it's not that Yemi's not going to be around at Christmas, because she most certainly will, but she may not be able to travel out to Casey and Tiff's house for the family get together and gift exchange. So we just did it then, which I thought was fun. It was a pretty fun riot going through all the gifts. The best part of it is like all these random things that she buys and the laughs that come of that. Casey complaining, I had the beeps ready. I did some complaining myself too, because I felt like it was really unfair where their team, because they're a family of 4, and it always like, it's supposed to be like, a solo thing where every man for himself, essentially, where you pick out the gifts you want and try to trade and all this stuff. But it always becomes team-based, where it's their family versus ours. And when they have a family of 4 versus a family of 3, they've got all these extra cards, essentially, to steal all our gifts. So they all ended up with more cards and more gifts. But the benefit of it was no one really won because all the gifts, Yemi, if you're listening with peace and love, the gifts were not my favorite. The only thing that I really want from these are batteries because I use those. Tiff got those. Tiff got money. Tiff was the ultimate winner. She got all the great stuff. Although I did get a boba kit that I used today. So Yami, if you're listening to this, which I know she does, she says this is boring, but she always listens. The boba kit was actually pretty good. The way you make it is like completely backwards to how I think you should make it. So next time I'm going to do it differently, but I tried it this morning and I really liked it. It was very enjoyable. So I got that. And then what else did we get? What I thought was the batteries were some rolls of coins. She pranked me. She got me. So I got some coins that Clark then like opened all the dimes up to count them. And I was like, dude, they were already counted. So now I have a whole pile of dimes and I have a roll of nickels and a roll of pennies. But it was the gift exchange. Thanksgiving though was amazing. Like the food, of course, it's like probably my favorite holiday meal because it's just like I love white meat turkey. Come at me, dark meat lovers, but white meat turkey with mashed potatoes, with corn on top of that, with gravy mixed in with that. I just put it all together. And then you got pumpkin pie. We had apple pie. There was a whole bunch of appetizers and things there. No one left hungry. In fact, being that the Casey and Tiff's family, they were having another Thanksgiving dinner like the next day. No one really wanted anything to do with leftovers. So we ended up having like Thanksgiving dinner, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We just had it until it was gone. And I had zero complaints on my behalf. I enjoyed all of that food. And I love making like cold turkey sandwiches the next day. What else did we have? I know there was other food that was out there. Oh, green bean casserole. We had a bunch of that. I'm probably forgetting some things, but it was, the standard Thanksgiving fare. And I really enjoyed all the food and the festivities. One thing though that like didn't go as well as I had hoped, and I guess this is just the reality of where we're at these days. I didn't feel like that I developed a very good connection with Kyle and Landon this time. And I know a part of that is because they're much older than they used to be. Like I miss the days when they were just little dudes, sort of like Clark Man is now. And I was like so cool in their eyes because I had all these video games and all these Lego things and all this stuff. And like they really looked up to me, I felt like. But now, like Kyle's 20, Landon just turned 18. These guys are grown adults now. And like they got their own lives. Like they didn't especially want to be here. Like Kyle has a girlfriend. And you know how that is when you're 20 years old with a girlfriend. You don't want to be hanging out at your aunt and uncle's house and like away from home. Landon had a bunch of friends that were getting together at like the night that they were over here. And it was like, they just kind of like, we didn't do the gaming thing that we've done in the past. We're all like having some good laughs and playing games together. It's kind of like everybody kind of did their own thing. And I didn't love that as much, but I guess I got to realize that that's kind of just the way it is when kids get a little bit older. But it kind of got a little bit of fear in me though, because like with Clark, man, we have that bond and that vibe right now, of course, that like is unbreakable. But I worry, like, what's it going to be like when he's a teenager, when he's 18, 20 years old? Are we still going to have what we have now? I'm going to work as hard as I can to keep that. And I do think that, like when I see Kyle and Landon, I see them a couple times a year. So it's hard to like keep all that going. Whereas if it's your kid, like we're just kind of like, we're growing up together. You know what I mean? So maybe a little bit different, but maybe I could have done something better or different to try to like engage with those guys. But it's hard when they're like, they're grown-ups now. They grown up, which is still crazy to think, but that's like kind of the only downside of Thanksgiving. Although there was one other little thing that you may have seen in the video, and that was the girl that drove through our mailbox. And if you've seen our mailbox, it's not just like a regular mailbox that, a post with a box on top of it. It's a brick column that matches this other like brick fencing area that they put in. The previous owners had this. So this thing's been in there for, at least 5 years. That's how long we've been here. And you think of the thousands of cars that have driven by in that amount of time. No problems. We're not even on like a turn or anything. Like it's pretty straight away. Wednesday night, I was getting ready for bed. I was washing my face and I came downstairs and I heard a car like beeping, like it was like a couple beeps in a row, like beep, 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 beep. And I'm like, what the heck? So I look out like the little glass, the frosted glass beside our front door, and I see a car sitting out there with like its four ways on. And I was like, oh no, they must have hit a deer, because that's what happens up in our area. You hit deer And I saw someone hit a deer once out in front of our house. It's like, oh shoot, I better go get my stuff. And Tiff was there, and she goes out. This is Wednesday night, so the whole family's here. The whole get together is happening. And by the time I go out, I realize what happens, and that is she blasted through our mailbox, not a deer, but our mailbox, and there were bricks literally everywhere in the road and the grass. The girl is frantic. She's like crying and like in disbelief, like picking bricks up out of the road. And we're just like, no, it's you don't worry about that. She was okay, thankfully, but her car airbags went off, completely totaled. It turns out the backstory on this, the missing pieces of it, if you will, is that she literally just turned 16 and a half years old. May 21st of 2008 was her birthday. So on November 21st, 2008, she turned 16 years and 6 months old. And that is when you can actually get your license in Pennsylvania. You have to get your permit anytime after you turn 16, and you have to wait 6 months to get your license. So she must have literally done that the day she could have, because this was less than a week later. I think, what night was that? Let's get the dates here properly. So in November 27th. So she got her license at the very earliest on Thursday the 21st. And by Wednesday the 27th, she had she got her car and totaled it within a week. And she said when we were out there that she was looking in her rearview mirror, but Casey noticed that in the grass you could see her tire marks, and she was a couple feet off the road. If you go watch the video, you can see just how far off the road she was. So she was either, this is my guess, she was either texting and driving, and then looks up at the last second, realizes she's off the road, and then smashes into our mailbox, because she didn't even brake. Like she just went right through the darn thing. Or Cody mentioned this, as did my neighbor across the street. They have all these decorations, which you may have seen in some of our vlogs. They're just tons of them. Light up stuff, blow ups, inflatables, all of that. And the guy across the street thinks that maybe she was gawking. She's looking at all these decorations, with her head turned to the left, and then realize that she's not on the road anymore, and kaplow. Something definitely happened, because you don't typically get that far off the road. I think maybe she should have went with the I fell asleep routine. Like, if you're going to make a story up, I don't know if I'd go with looking in my rearview mirror, because that was a long time. I don't know. What are you looking at? It's dark out. There's no cars. Like, what are you looking in your rearview mirror for? She should have said she fell asleep or something and then just went through that. But regardless, like, her car's done for. Her insurance company, they are going to be furious. I'm sure their rates are going to go through her grandparents showed up here. They literally live just down the road from us. So she's driven past this house literally every single day that she's gone to school or gone into town. Wherever she's going, she's driven past this house or ridden past this house. But now we're like a part of her memory now. She's always going to look at our house and our mailbox, or what was our mailbox, and think about that night that she drove through that and totaled her car. So I don't know what's going to happen from here. Like, obviously they're going to take a huge hit on that car when they total it, because, like, say they bought that within the last week or so, and they paid X number of dollars. It's a 2012 Ford Fusion, so it's a decade old. But like, the insurance company is not going to give them what they paid for it. And now when they go to renew their insurance, her rates are going to be crazy. They're going to pay for my mailbox replacement. Like, I talked to the claims people, and they basically, it seems simple, hopefully. They said just get a quote from like a brick mason, which I have calls out with 2 of them. Again, it's so hard to get people to actually do stuff for you. I'm like resorting to leaving a message that basically says, "Hello, sir or madam, I would like to pay you money handsomely. I'd like to pay you handsomely for the thing that you do for a living. If you would like to earn money and for me to give you money, give me a call back." I have to, like, you have to sell these people like they won a radio contest or something. It's ridiculous. But now I learned is not the time to do brickwork. You have to wait until the spring when everything kind of warms up a little bit. So in the meantime, I put in just like a throwaway mailbox out there. Basically, it's like the $50 special from Lowe's. So we're using that for now. I'm going to get a quote on what it's going to cost to not only repair the new mailbox, or like we're essentially going to start from scratch, build a new one to replicate it, but also to dispose of all the bricks that are piled up in the yard. Clark and I went out there and we piled them all up. It was crazy. And I was just thinking, like, of all the things for this girl to hit, like, I look at all the mailboxes on this entire road, and there is one house that has one like ours, where it's like brick and like built in like that. Every other mailbox It's just like a post with plastic, wood, metal, whatever. And like if she'd hit that, probably would have put a nice dent in her bumper, maybe hood, but that would have been it. Who knows though? But like Cody said, she might have just kept driving. Had she hit like a regular mailbox, wouldn't have been catastrophic. Just get a new one. But in this case, like she hit the most expensive mailbox that she could possibly hit, and it destroyed her car. So she's okay. She'll live to tell the story. But it definitely is a bummer when that happens, especially when you're that young. But I hope she learned a lesson from it. And if that was that you shouldn't text and drive or whatever she was doing, like stay focused and maybe practice a little bit more before getting your license, because that was just crazy. But we got that all resolved. New mailboxes in. Made a whole video about that process. The mailbox, I guess, the saga is done for now. Well, assuming I can get someone to take a look at it and give me a freaking quote. That's all I'm asking for. There's a part of me that's thinking, though, like the insurance company is just going to give me a check for whatever the amount is. Say it's $1,000 to build one of those. There's a part of me that's like, that $50 mailbox is working just fine out there right now. Maybe I just keep the money. I could invest that. Just think what $1,000 can turn into in 30 years instead of having a mailbox that, like, say we sell this house, is that mailbox going to make or break a sale? I would say absolutely not. Maybe it's like, oh, that's kind of nice. Maybe they don't even notice when they go to buy it. I don't remember if like I looked at the mailbox and was like, I'm buying this house because of that mailbox. I just thought, it looks nice. But Cody and I, we both want to replicate what we had there before, which should be a pretty easy thing to do, Lord willing. So that was like the whole Thanksgiving experience. The only other thing that we did over Thanksgiving break, which was absolutely awesome, and I ended up making a 47-minute video about it, was Clark and I built the Lion Knights Castle. This is a set that I actually bought while we were in the UK in 2022. It became available on August 1st. I think we were in London at the time, and I bought this set from the UK, and I went to lego.com, but I had it shipped, and it's been in storage room of doom ever since. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to take on a really big set over break where we have 10 days that we can try to build this? And that set it took every bit of that, because it was about 4,500 pieces. And each day we'd build a bag or two. Some days we didn't get to build it all. Like on Thanksgiving, I think we might've built like a bag, but we just kind of kept cranking through it. And it was the perfect, just like It Takes Two was the perfect game to play with two people. This is the perfect set to build with two people, because there's two distinct halves of this castle and two manuals. So if you're like a tag team building crew, like Clark and I are, we sat down and each day we just built a couple bags. And eventually by the end of it, we had this whole entire castle built, which happened to be the biggest and most expensive Lego set that I've ever purchased. We took it on, we defeated it. Clark did a great job building it. We had a lot of fun. And it was just like, it's one of those things that I'll look at that set and I'm going to think about those memories that we had when we built that together. And it's like one of my favorite things to do in Lego is when we take it on as a duo. That being said, Clark, man, he's a fan of building his own stuff out of Lego, and that's a direction that I want to go more too. So that's where I see myself going in the future, but I do see a lot of Legoing happening in 2025. In fact, I think maybe at the end of this year, the very beginning of next year, we'll do an episode where it's like my goals for the next year for 2025, and I can unveil all those. But I think Lego definitely is going to be a big part of my future, particularly like with vlogging. I enjoy doing that a lot. But I feel like Lego gives there's a focus, and I like that. So, and I just enjoy the hobby in general, and I've got so much of it to process and to sort and to build, and there's just endless content that I can make there. And I'm blessed to have this Lego channel where people, just like this podcast, people tune in to watch us do what we do, and it's nothing special. It's just us like sharing an experience, a 47-minute experience of like 2.5 hours that I recorded. That was crazy, but the video did well. People seem to enjoy it, and I enjoyed it as well, and that creates memories that we can keep. So that's like a lot of what we did over break. I also played some Red Dead. I have some things on the way. In fact, this will kind of take us into our next segment of this. I'm trying to defeat Red Dead Redemption 2. It's a game that I've had installed on my PlayStation 5 for a long time, and it's like 150 gigs, and I kind of need that space. Plus, I've got some games coming here that I want to get into, but I need to beat that first. This is like when I bought the Sony camera, and I determined that the only way that I can buy that camera is if I sell off my old Olympus, which I did over break. In fact, on Thanksgiving Day, I sold the camera for $500. I sold one of the lenses for $400 or something like that. And then I have another one on sale for like $500. So that's going to be a nice windfall, especially considering I returned the Sony camera this week. I decided, like, I was going back and forth between that and the Canon, and the people that watched the videos, like I did a comparison, and everyone seemed to like the Canon colors better, and I do too. I feel like they're more pleasing. So I ended up just keeping my Canon, which was worth like I paid $1,000 for it refurbished. I got the lens for $350 on eBay, and the whole Sony setup was $2,800. And I just started thinking, like, dude, I'm not making Hollywood movies. I'm literally just sharing my day to day life and my Lego journey. And there's really nothing like I'll never get the full use out of that camera. In fact, like most of my stuff when I'm out and about, it's just filmed with an iPhone. And sometimes people ask, like, hey, would you film this with? I'm like, it's my iPhone. It's good enough for what I do. And I'm just going to roll with what I got. So I've got the Canon that I use most times for the videos. And then I've got my phone that I just use when around about. I've got an action cam. I've got a ton. Well, I still have lots of cameras, even though I sold a lot of them off. I've got enough stuff that I have a tool for every job. Is what I'll say. And I don't feel like the Sony was really necessary for that. I feel like if we're talking about the bag of golf clubs as your camera bag, that was like one that was like made for Tiger Woods, and you're just like the scrub that goes out on the weekend and hits a couple of balls, like not necessary. Just go out with what you got. And like, I'd rather have all that money. $2,800 is pretty substantial. That might even pay for a mailbox. I would hope. I honestly, I can't wait to get the quote to see what that costs. Like in my mind, like building a mailbox like that, maybe like $500 to $1,000, but I don't know what are bricks cost. What does someone's time cost? What it's going to cost to like get that all set up, and who knows? I guess people lived here before when they put it in. They probably found out, but her insurance company will find out. I just hope that they don't give me any trouble. Anyways, let's go back on topic here. We're done talking about the mailbox. It's been a saga that I'm just like, every time I look out of my window and I see those bricks out there, I just like, I want to move on. It's the last time I'll talk about it unless something else comes up. Let's talk about Black Friday, Cyber Monday. That's the thing that usually follows Thanksgiving. And while Clark and I were doing all of our building and getting ready for Thanksgiving, I actually did all of my Black Friday shopping before it even came. Probably, I think, even before Wednesday, because I think some of my stuff even came before the family members did. I ended up getting a lot of video game stuff, surprisingly. So the first thing that I bought was 2 games from Amazon. I bought the Final Fantasy Pixel Collection for $55, and this has Final Fantasy 1 through 6 on it for the Nintendo Switch. And I've never played those old Final Fantasy games, and I've heard so much good stuff about them. In fact, I don't think I've ever played any of them. I might have played a little bit of 7, a little bit of 8 that my friend had, but I kind of want to get into the RPG scene. So I ended up paying $55 for that, which was actually less than the $70 that it usually is. But I was happy to secure that. I also, at the same time, got another collection, which was the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. And I think that has Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, and some of the old Metal Gears, like the vintage ones that came out before that. So I can play through all of the Solid Snake adventures. I also got an Atari VCS console, which is usually like $200, but was on sale with Walmart for $80. So I got that. I haven't even opened that up yet. I think I'm going to do like a video. I don't know if it's going to be on Greg's World or Greg's Arcade, where I show the video game stuff that I got. But I got one other game too, and that was Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Is it Tears of the Fallen Kingdom? Something like that. I haven't even beat Breath of the Wild yet, which is like right after Red Dead. That's the next highest thing on my list, because I have to beat Breath of the Wild in order to play Tears of the Kingdom. It's just Tears of the Kingdom. That was on sale for $30. I found out that's usually a $70 game. At least that's what I saw. I don't know if that's accurate. Is it 70? I feel like Nintendo probably would put the Zelda tax, just like Lego does. So I got Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy, the Master Collection for Metal Gear, the Atari VCS, but then on Cyber Monday, that's when I got a little out of hand, and I saw this deal on the Sony PlayStation VR 2. Usually like $500 or $600. It was on sale for $350. And the thing that really sold me on this was the fact that I just sold a lens to essentially pay for it. So I could trade even swap on a lens that I no longer use to get this PlayStation VR. But it comes with a Horizon game called, I think it's called The Climb or Mountain or something like that, where you do a lot of climbing in virtual reality, plus you have a bow and arrow. I do have the Horizon game that I need to play first, or maybe like simultaneously with that. So that's another reason I need to beat Red Dead, so I can play that game and then I can get into this VR. But people are saying playing Gran Turismo in VR is like the greatest experience ever. So I want to play that. Plus, I was watching a guy play the Resident Evil Village game in VR, which looks so freaking scary. And I kind of want to be terrified. Like, I usually don't play survival horror games because they scare me so bad. Even just playing them on regular TV. Like I can watch a scary movie, but if I watch or if I play a game where like zombies are after me or whatever, like it just causes me all kinds of terror. And that's the reason I haven't been able to play The Last of Us. I just feel like I'm going to be too frightened. But there's a part of me that just really wants to be scared, and I thought playing this like in virtual reality first person would be kind of fun. Plus I also saw that there's a way that you can set up your PlayStation VR 2 to play on your PC, and then I can play other PC games as well. Because I was kind of debating on whether to get a new Quest or not, but the Quest equivalent to the PlayStation VR 2 is like $500, but it did come with a Batman game, the Arkham Shadows game, I think is what it's called. And I'm like, that would be fun to play. But then like I saw a really good deal on the Quest 3S, which is the cheaper version of that. Am I getting too deep into the weeds here? And that was, you could get $100 off of it plus the game. And I was like, ooh, should I do that or should I do the PlayStation? And I just like, on a whim, I kind of just bought the PlayStation VR 2. So I'm hoping that I enjoy it. I think there's going to be a lot of fun to be had with it. And there's some games on the way, and there's some games out too that I would like to play. One is called, what was that one game called? That Synapse looked really cool. Sort of like a Superhot style game, which Superhot's been my favorite gaming experience that I've had in like the last decade, playing that for the Quest 1. So I feel like I'm going to be able to play that a good bit. I'm a little hesitant as to whether I'm going to get my $350 out of it, which is crazy because it's like that's what the huge markdown price. But it turns out they sold a lot of those units, and I'm hoping that reinvigorates Sony to put out a lot of stuff for it. Oh, the other game I really, really, really want to play. I want to play No Man's Sky in VR. I heard that's an incredible experience too. So you might be able to see me do some of this on my gaming channel. The VR stuff doesn't show up super well because like when you're moving around, like you can kind of make people sick by, if I turn my head, I'm turning in the game. So we'll have to see how that goes, but I think that'd be kind of fun to play. So those were all of the video game purchases that I made for Black Friday. Got a little carried away there, particularly with the VR 2, but I also got a few Lego things, starting with Lego Insiders Weekend. Ended up like almost buying the Loop Coaster. It was on sale for it was like $310 or something like that. Plus Honey was doing $50 cash back. Plus there was double VIP and 2 gift with purchases. But then common sense struck, and I was like, where am I going to put that thing? It's a 3-foot tall like loop thing. You goes up really high, then comes down and does a couple loops. Common sense got the best of me, and I decided to not do that. Instead, I got the Tuxedo Cat, which you can kind of see right back here if you're watching this. Don't come over and watch us though. I already warned you. And then I also got the Lamborghini Countach, which is on back order. So I'm excited to get that. Got a couple gift with purchases. Clark and I built one of them last night, which is the winter holiday train. He was most excited about that out of everything. And then there's a record player, which I think I'm going to list and sell. In fact, today my goal for this afternoon is to try to list a bunch of Lego stuff on eBay, because it is the season to be selling off stuff. And once January comes, people, they don't have the money or funds or anything to do much other than pay their Christmas bills or their holiday credit cards. So got to strike while the iron's hot, and we got to get some things listed as it's already the 6th of December today. So we'll be doing some of that. I also got the Hogwarts Express train. This is one that I ordered with Tears of the Kingdom. It was a Black Friday deal with Walmart. But by the time I ordered, after kind of him hauling around, because I already had a Hogwarts Express, but you know what they say about Hogwarts Expresses, you can never have too many of them. I ended up pulling the trigger on it, but it was in-store pickup only. So I had to go down to Walmart and actually do an in-store pickup, which I actually made a video on, and I put that out to patrons because I thought they might enjoy the kind of behind the scenes of how I got this Lego set. So if you'd like to join our Patreon, support the channel, the link is down below. You can become a member of our Photo of the Month Club, where you can get a photo sent to us, or sent to you, from me, physical photo. And I'm going to do a live stream again this month, or maybe I'll record it where I just go through all of those and send them all out. It's a fun thing to do. That was pretty much everything in Lego that I got into. In Watch-A-Tech news, couple movies we watched. I watched this one that I saw, I think it was on Netflix. It's called Coherence. Not necessarily a movie I would recommend, but it's kind of bizarre. It's about this group of friends that's getting together while a comet's flying overhead, and like all the power goes out in the place they're staying. So a couple of the guys go out because they see another house with power on, and then like they come back, but they're weird. And then people go out again, and then they see themselves out there, the same group of people. And it turns out like there's these 2 other houses that are like replicas of their house with the same people in, and they're trying to figure out who's who and what's what. There's this twist at the end. It's bizarre. I can't recommend it because it's like, I don't know if I would waste the time watching it if I were you. But I was just kind of curious about it. I like kind of like movies with a twist, and this one had a twist at the end, like if a person's real or not real, and is there other like dimensions out there where like we exist in all these different realities, like the multiverse essentially. Coherence. Don't watch it. A movie I watched on YouTube that was recommended is like said free, and it was a movie called The Devil and Daniel Johnston, and it's about this man who was, or a boy or kid at the time, who was destined for musical greatness. He was an artist in every way. Like he did regular like drawing art and painting and things like that, but he also did music, and his music career was about to take off and he was going to be like the next big thing. But then he suffered from like a mental breakdown, and it turns out he has all these like mental issues that maybe didn't come forward when he was a kid, but as he grew up and like right when he was on the cusp of all these things, and like he was on MTV and all this stuff, this is in the 80s, like all of a sudden like his life fell apart, and he spent a lot of time in like mental institutions still trying to make music. But then he was on like antidepressants, and like they were ruining him a little bit like in terms of his creative spirit, so he would go off the meds to do shows, and then he would like he's getting lost in New York City and people are looking for him. It's just like a whole story of this guy's life, and just how unfortunate it was like that he could have been like destined for greatness, but like the mental stuff just completely did him in. That's called the Devil and Daniel Johnston. It's on YouTube. You can watch that for free. The other movie that we watched together as a family is one that I rented, and it's called The Wild Robot, which happens to be a book series that Cody and Clark are reading for Milk and Coffee Time, something they have every I was gonna say Thanksgiving morning. Every morning on the weekends, they do like their little reading thing together. It's like their special time. Clark and I have the Lego stuff. Of course, Mrs. Brickatect, the reader of the family, or the English teacher of the family, she has that. So they read these books together, and they're on the third one, I think, or they just got the third one in the mail. But the first one is actually a movie, and it's out already. So we watched The Wild Robot. I rented it from Amazon. It was one of those things where it was like you can rent it for $20 or buy it for 30. We just rented it because we don't typically go back and watch movies over and over again. But it's like expensive rental, but I think it's still in theaters right now too. So like if the three of us were to go to the theater to watch it, we have to drive to the theater. We got to pay for tickets, which I think even matinee tickets, it would cost us more than what that is. And then you got to watch the previews, and then you're kind of on someone else's time, and there's other people there. And I kind of just like the idea of like doing this from our home. I have a movie theater essentially like right here. It's the perfect place. So we rented it for $20, and the movie was fantastic. It was exactly what I'd hoped for after watching the trailer. Like watching the trailer for this movie got me a little emotional. It's about this robot that like there's a I guess it's in a cargo on a cargo ship, and it gets washed up onto this island, and there's no people on this island but a bunch of animals. And the robot is like a helper robot from like the future, essentially like a future of humanity. This is set like I don't know how many, like maybe 100 years in the future, possibly, where we have robot assistants to help us with everything. And this robot's like trying to go around to these animals, trying to offer assistance, but they're all afraid of it. The robot's name is Roz, by the way. But then Roz accidentally steps on or falls into this nest of these geese, and there's one egg left, and then that becomes like her baby named Bright Bill, who she's trying to help become like a normal bird and fly south for the winter. And they have so much time to make this happen, and the other animals interact, and it's just so good. It's such a great message, almost like what I was talking about with Kyle Lannon. And like it's for anybody that's had kids that you've like raised up and have tried to send out into the world, and how like stressful that is, and like how things change as they get older, and disagreements that you may have, and how things aren't always going to be like perfect, right? But ultimately like love comes through, and you both realize that as the child and the parent. And that's what The Wild Robot's about, and I would highly recommend watching that. You may be able to wait a little while for it to come to, I think it would come to Peacock probably here a little bit because it's a Universal movie. But if you want to watch it, if you've been debating it, that's the one to watch. It's called The Wild Robot, and you can rent it from pretty much anywhere. So that was pretty much it for, I guess, our long break. This week was kind of back to the grind. On Tuesday, Clark and I went back to school, kind of went back to making my videos, normal scheduled videos again, doing my thing, and I do have some editing to do today as well. I'm going to list that stuff on eBay, but that kind of got you all caught up on everything that I've been up to and into. Hopefully as advertised. But let's next transfer into listener feedback. This is from 2 weeks ago. You may not even remember what I talked about. I certainly don't. But you guys had a lot to say about this, so we'll read through a bunch of these. Starting with Canadian guy who says, "Hey Greg, I figured I'd comment on missing pieces regarding your Greg's World Thanksgiving Day video. I just wanted to say, as a Canadian, I love how important Thanksgiving is to our awesome neighbors to the south. It is the one time a year I'm envious of the good old US of A." So the mailbox incident. As a person in law enforcement, it seemed you guys handled it really well, and that makes everyone's job easier. Trust me. She obviously looked down at her phone and was in a hurry. Never text and drive. I've seen what happens when people do. There's the life lesson for today from Canadian guy. It says, "I love Budman's cool demeanor the next day. It really showed his compassion when his main question was if the driver was okay. It's something small, but it means a lot that he would ask about her welfare. I also wanted to say it was great to see Deb with her great sense of humor shooting you the bird and while still having a warm smile on her face. Funny story, missing pieces side story. That was the little finger, not the middle finger. If you go back and watch it, you can see she doesn't actually give me the bird, but it's funny nonetheless." She said, "Yeah." He goes on to say, "You're fortunate to have such a great family. Sorry for the long comment. Yes, I do listen. I do listen and really enjoy the pod every week. Hopefully last week wasn't too lonely for you. All the best to you and your family." Thank you, sir. Yeah, I always feel bad when I take a week off, but it was like it just felt right. We were all having the break experience, and I know like sometimes you rely on these episodes. I do. I have a lot of podcasts, or a few podcasts that I listen to where like if they don't make one that week, I'm like, oh man, what am I gonna do now? But I'm back for you here. But I'm glad you tune in, and I appreciate you commenting. Next one comes from Sam. Says, hey there, Greg. How was Thanksgiving break? Well, you be the judge. It was the good with the bad, right? Microsoft Flight Sim disaster reminded me of what I believe to be too much of a good thing. I think what Microsoft should have done is let the user download the whole game rather than putting most of the data in the cloud. If they had done this, I'm sure the game would be a lot more stable for everyone. Dude, I'm willing to delete a lot of stuff off my Xbox to have that game run smoothly with like insane graphics. Please just let me do it. Even if it's just a section, just like, where do I always fly at? Let's say I always fly in the Northeast of the United States even. Let's make that. I don't know. I'm kind of bummed about the game. I've kind of let it go. There was a little bit of gameplay from Budman. He played it a little bit over Thanksgiving break. Casey, I thought would, he is obsessed with Flight Simulator, but he tried doing a landing challenge and it was loading so slowly that he ended up crashing the plane because he couldn't control it. And he was just done. So there you go, Microsoft. You're losing fans here. He says, speaking of games, though, I'd recently re-entered the gaming scene a bit by continuing a game called Cuphead. I definitely know of that one. He says, a game I don't recommend if you have a short temper. I want to get back into American Truck Simulator as well, but I'm having issues with my barely year-old gaming laptop. That game should run pretty well on that. I run it on max settings on mine because it's an older game. He says, Greg, you have a pretty good problem trying to find the perfect property when you already live in a home you love. I'll say that I don't really understand that lady's downsize plan. I think that she's possibly screwing herself financially. Possibly. I don't know what she's trying to do. I don't think that house is going to sell. We'll be spending my Thanksgiving driving to Fargo and back. I saw the movie. My older brother is moving out of his apartment over there and finally moving to New York City. I have to go over there, though, and pick up his car since he will no longer need it, and some other stuff as well. But yeah, no Thanksgiving festivities this year. However, I hope everyone has a glorious Thanksgiving filled with wonderful family. See you guys later. I think that was the case for most of us. You stop in at like a local gas station, get yourself like a little turkey sandwich. You could do that at least, right? But Thanksgiving sometimes is more about the food. It's about helping family, which is what you're doing. And I think that's a good thing. Next one comes from Ashley. It says, wow, what a great Thanksgiving break. Our school had random days off in November, and I like your way much better. Greg, you often mention Cody's chocolate chip cookies. They're the best. Recipe would be greatly appreciated. I have there's a few people that like tune into Greg's World for the cooking stuff. It's interesting. We could probably pull that off. I could film her making them and we could make a video about it. Two things, although it is dangerous when she makes her cookies because she made some oatmeal scotchies for Thanksgiving and they're so good. And I ate those with a whole bunch of milk. And we're not going to go into Health Attack this week for that very reason. The weight's up. It's not good. Not good news. She goes on to say, two things I want to share. In a recent video, you sang the song from the old Bagel Bites commercial. When pizza's on a bagel, you can have pizza anytime. And my 7-year-old thought it was so funny. He called my mom and dad to tell him what Clark's dad sang. Then when I told him I remember that song, he really wasn't impressed by me. Also, we went to Pittsburgh last Sunday and saw Home Alone live. which I didn't even know was a thing. She says, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but they play the movie and there's a live orchestra playing the music. It was amazing. I think if you ever get a chance to go, I think the whole family would love it. Have a great finish to the holiday week. I would love to do that. If you guys didn't know, my favorite movie of all time is Home Alone. I don't know what it is about it, but I just find the movie so relatable. I love the story. Kevin is awesome. And I think maybe because it's a Christmas movie too. It brings warmth to every place of my heart. That movie, I love that one. I love Home Alone 2. In my opinion, there are no other Home Alone movies, so don't even think about Home Alone 3 or anything after it. Especially that most cursed one that just came out a couple years ago. Although Clark got some laughs out of it. Home Alone 1 and 2, best movies of all time. You can't change my mind. And maybe it's because I think another thing with that movie, even though Clark loves it too, I feel like I was similar to age to Kevin. So seeing his childhood in that movie, it's kind of like seeing my childhood a little bit. Although his family seems to be much richer than what mine was. I can kind of live through Kevin a little bit. So Home Alone, give it a watch if you've never seen it. I'm sure most of us probably have. Next one comes from Jennifer, who says, I suggest saving the Harry Potter Hogwarts Express for the summer and read the Harry Potter first. Maybe get through the third one before doing anything with the set. Clark and you might get into Harry Potter and want to play with the set. It would be a lot of fun to have the set go along with reading the books for the first time. It would make a special memory. I like doing stuff like that. I've been trying to encourage him to do the Harry Potter thing, but he doesn't seem to be interested in it. But I've also found with Clark Man, and I've talked about this before in episodes, where sometimes kids don't necessarily want to do stuff, but if you give them that little nudge, then they find out how much they love it. Clark Man would have never ridden a roller coaster if I didn't give him that nudge. Now he loves the Phoenix. I'm trying to work him up to going upside down, doing some crazy stuff at Hershey Park, the ones that I do there. He's not quite there yet, but I'm just thankful that he is a coaster enthusiast. And that was all through you gotta, with Roz and Bright Bill, you got to put the bird up into the air a little bit sometimes, just like with Yami on Thanksgiving. You got to put the bird up. I think there's probably a fine line between being too aggressive with things, but also being encouraging. I think just letting your kids say no to things is a mistake without them fully knowing what the possibilities are. Because there's I've had so many examples that I tell Clark all the time. I'm like, what about the time you didn't want to do this, but then you loved it? What about the time you didn't want to do this, but then you loved it? You got to try this. And then he does, and he loves it. So dad knows best sometimes, and that's where I stand. So we'll try. I'd love to try to get through. I think the movies would probably be the easiest thing to get into. We've watched them all through once. Some of them I may have fallen asleep for, but my favorite one from what I remember was the one that became a lot darker. Is it the Deathly Hallows? Or I don't know which one it was. It's the one where they're on the train and all those spooky things are flying around the outside. I really like that one. Harry was a little bit older in it too. I don't remember which movie that was. Don't use that as your comment though. If you're going to comment something next week, don't let it be what Harry Potter movie it was. Let it be something else. There's always one thing that everyone comments on. I don't know what it'll be this time. It'll be fun to see, but I hope you do. Next one comes from Chris. It says V for Vendetta was written by the great Alan Moore, who has written some of the best books of all time. Watchmen, V for Vendetta, From Hell, Batman, Killing Joke, Superman, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and Swamp Thing run is great. I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that information. I do love V for Vendetta. I watched and read The Watchmen. Who will watch The Watchmen? And I haven't seen the other ones, I don't think. So we have some watching to do, some watch detecting to happen. Next one comes from Kelly. Said, it's so nice to Clark gets the whole week off. Enjoy and happy Thanksgiving. I meant to comment last week. So what about renting an RV for a trip and see if you love it? That's an option. They do have RV rentals where you can kind of just get one for a week-long trip, and that would be kind of cool to do it, without committing to a expensive one. But I honestly think the best way to sell Mrs. Bricktech on a cross-country trip is if we were staying in hotels along the way. And I feel like the money would actually work out to be a little bit less, and you'd have more amenities that way too. You stay at a hotel, you get their pool, maybe free breakfast, and space to move around and all that jazz. You don't have to look for a place to park it every night or a campground where you're also going to be paying to do that too, unless you stay in a Walmart parking lot, which is possible and maybe fun and exciting and adventurous. But maybe just going around with hotels would be the best of both worlds. But that being said, this next comment, this one really sold the heck out of me. This is from Jim, who paints an entire picture here, and I just want to enjoy this. So let's go in. He says, Greg, now you're hitting the nostalgia nerve. The RV, in my opinion, is overpriced. I took a voluntary layoff a few years back, pre-kids, sold my condo, and put whatever was left in a storage unit. I'm loving the story already. I bought a Chevy passenger van, think airport taxi style, 15 passenger job. I took it out the seats, blacked out the windows, put in a power converter for $200, built a frame for storage, and threw a queen size futon mattress on that. This is how you do it. Uh, in all in, it was like 22K. That includes the vehicle. I drove that thing across the United States with my wife. We brought hiking and camping gear. We brought bathing suits. We brought our ski gear. We brought everything we needed. We had a truck box on the hitch on the back and had a grill and camp stoves and 10-day coolers to hold ice and cold food. We saw 44 states in 6 months and it only cost us like 8 to 10K. You can bank the rest of that 80K to go on another wild adventure for a few months in Australia in a similar style. I love that. But he goes on, that's not it. That's not all. He says, we hiked every major national park, Zion, Arches, Yellowstone, Yosemite, Grand Canyon, Mount Rushmore, etc., etc. We stayed in Walmart parking lots and campgrounds and friends' houses. We camped in the Redwood Forest. We left our campsite in Grand Canyon. It was snowing. By the time we were halfway down the hike into the canyon, it was 78 degrees and we were in shorts. We stayed in a cabin at Yosemite and listened to the stream roll by. The next morning, we tried panning for gold in the river just feet from our deck. We skied in Colorado, Montana, New Mexico, California. We stayed in the parking lot at A Basin in Colorado and got up to over a foot of fresh powder and skied the most amazing open area skiing I will ever do. We stayed in a really nice hotel at Vail and hung out in a rooftop hot tub overlooking some insane mountain ranges. He goes on. We swam in the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Gulf of Mexico, the Great Lakes, and so many lakes and streams. We saw friends from across the country. We saw wild animals in the wild. An eagle took a flight down a river that gave me such a moment of soul-filling peace and awe that I'll never forget that bird for as long as I live, or forget standing by that river. We lived, we laughed, we loved. Oh my gosh. We were humbled by the earth and the vastness of our country and the land and the wildlife and the nature of it all. We drove from New England to the Keys to Texas to Mexico to Washington to the Heartland. I think we drove something like 20,000 plus miles in those 6 months, if memory serves correctly. I would do it again in a heartbeat. No regrets, just do it. Holy smokes. Dude, like what a story. I want to watch that movie. Where's the movie, Jim? Did you record this whole thing? Because like that's where my mind goes to immediately. Like you did all this amazing stuff. Like think of the content. And you kind of found the best of both worlds, right? Like you had a vehicle which was not hard to navigate around if you're just talking about a passenger van, but it's one you could stay in, but you didn't just stay in there. Like I'm thinking in like either ors. You stayed in that, but you also stayed in hotels and did a bunch of different stuff. Obviously, like that might be one of the most epic comments we've ever gotten on Missing Pieces. Like, were you guys there with him in the fresh powder? Did you see that eagle fly overhead? Like what, like the way that it's written, like, I feel like I just cracked open a novel and I'm about ready to go on a journey, which I would love to do. Holy smokes. But yeah, I feel like this coming year, it's going to be a little challenging. Like we were looking at maybe doing Disney in February. But with Deb and her health situation, she'll be on the tail end of her first round, or hopefully only round of chemo then. But like we've got Roxy Bear, who's older now, and it's like we can't necessarily take her over there and then burden them with another, thing to take care of, especially in that time. So like maybe by spring, summer, maybe everything's resolved then. I'm hoping so. And like she's back to good. Hopefully Roxy's still with us, but holy smokes, like she'll be 14 by then. But, this year is going to be kind of up in the air and it's going to be hard to make plans, but I would really love to do like a cross country trip over the summer. I think that would be so amazing. Like just to see where the world takes us, maybe go out with a little bit of a plan, but like keep it very, very slow. So if you find a place that you like and if you want to stay there an extra day, you can. But if you want to move on to somewhere else, you can do that as well. I feel like there'd be so much flexibility with that. And my favorite traveling is the ones where you create your own adventure like that. I don't like just getting dropped off at a resort, like an all-inclusive place, and you're just there. And sure, there's entertainment, lots of food and pools and things, but like I like deciding like when I wake up, what am I going to do today? Are we going to go snorkeling down at this place? Are we going to go over here? Are we going to go hiking? I just love that idea. And like Jim's message there, his story, just like, I just dream of that. I think that'd be so cool. But we'll have to see where this year takes us. Again, there's a lot of things up in the air with the health of people, and whether we need to be here to help with that. And this year might be like another like COVID year for us, where it's just kind of laying low. But maybe we can find a way to make some things happen. Cody wanted to take a trip to Europe this summer to maybe go to. Well, she's got a couple places up in the air, but that's that'll remain to be seen. I'll probably talk more about that maybe as we get into the spring. Once we get past I think once we get past like February and maybe March area, we'll have a better idea of how things are stacking up, and we'll see where we can go, and literally and figuratively. But that remains to be seen. You're gonna have to come back for some future episodes to find out what the story goes or where it goes. But I'm excited to share it with you, and I'm glad that you tuned into this episode to catch up on me and what we've been up to the last couple weeks. Just a nice Thanksgiving break overall, with a few setbacks. But that's life, right? Sometimes you take the good with the bad, and you just keep moving forward and pursuing the things that you love. And that's what I intend to keep doing. So on that, I hope you have a glorious rest of your week. And as always, we'll find you in the next Missing Pieces.